all CEOs, me included, we don't actually know what we're doing.
They're all sharks, so all you got to do, though, is know shark behavior.
I don't think we've ever talked about this before.
We can capture all of the wallet share.
First place you start is with the product.
That's just the first nut.
This is the Capital Stack.
Hey everybody, this is David Paul, the host of the Capital Stack podcast, where I talk to founders, operators, and investors about all things value creation and startups. I've got a celebrity with me today.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is going to be this is a big deal. I mean, I interview a lot of C-list people, and this is an A++ interviewee. His name is Will Drewery, and Will is a career advanced manufacturing operator for some of the largest and most prestigious advanced manufacturing companies in Silicon Valley. Some of them you might have heard of, including Tesla. Did some incredible work on the Tesla plants. He has also worked at Social Construct. He was also VP of supply chain of the rocket company Astra, and now he decided to become a masochist and get out of being an operator and be a founder who is starting up a new software company. I'm going to start with a story. I usually don't talk this much.
That's fine.
I do, but not on the podcast.
You can keep talking.
But I'm going to tell you how I got to know Will. Will was a guy who one of my companies admires a lot because they work in advanced manufacturing and supply chain. And they would always, bring up this guy, Will Drewery, like you were this mythical unicorn, right? And how incredible you were at supply chain because you worked at Astra at the time where we serviced as a customer. And, then I hear from the back channels that you were involved, doing some stuff with social capital. I think Chamath was an investor both in Astra and in Relativity.
Relativity and a battery company I'm on the board of, Mitrachem.
Mitrachem, yeah. And so, I'm a fanboy of Chamath. He's got very mixed opinions. I think he's fantastic. I love the guy. And I was at the All In Summit, and I see him kind of standing in the corner talking to some people. And I said, okay, David, how am I going to get this guy's attention? Right? And so I knew about your reputation. I knew how much Chamath likes you from just, hearing, how he talks about you in the public sphere. And I go up to him and I just mumble a couple words. And I say, Will Drewery. And he stops and he looks at me and he goes, Will? And I was like, well, kind of. He works a lot with the portfolio company of mine. We do advanced manufacturing sorting. And he looks down at my badge to try to figure out who I am. And
he was probably like, I'm so sorry you know that guy.
No. He was actually like, oh, wow. I think the word was exceptional. And he looked at my badge and I said, don't worry about my badge. I'm a nobody. You need to pay attention to data in my company. So anyway, lo and behold, I got his email address. I helped facilitate, kind of introduction. I think you helped with that as well. And that is my Will Drewery story, is that he resonates. He breaks down barriers for me. He gets me in the right room, even if I, pretended I know him. And now I do know him, and I'm super excited for him to be here. Will, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I mean, I'm in Phoenix, in Scottsdale. It's beautiful here. The weather's nice. It's hot, but I like the heat. And I'm really excited about all the stuff I'm getting to work on. I'm here for a conference with the Advanced Manufacturing Technology Organization. I've just been meeting some amazing people this week. So I really do feel like things are starting to take off for me. I couldn't be more excited to be here with you.
So for the listeners that don't know, what is advanced manufacturing, specifically in the realm in which you specialize in?
Yeah, so advanced manufacturing is any kind of technology that's used to make parts or products that require the forming of material or which could be additive. People know 3D printing. 3D printing can be done with polymers. It can be done with metals. There's all sorts of ways that now that people are building really cool and innovative products in that sphere. Subtractive technology has been around for decades. So subtractive means you're taking away material. So things like CNC machines, lathes, mills, they're all considered to be advanced manufacturing technology. And so manufacturers have been using this stuff for years, decades, to build things for aerospace, defense, automotive, lots of industries. But the way technology is developing today, we're able to do things that we never thought were possible. So when you couple advanced manufacturing techniques like 3D printing with generative AI or generative design, you're able to come up with designs and form factors that a human would never dream of. And it used to be that you could dream that thing up but not make it. But now with the way the technology is advancing, you can actually make those things. So that's advanced manufacturing in a nutshell.
Is there like a cost component as well that has, kind of stimulated the growth of this industry? Because it seems to me that like all of a sudden everyone's talking about it. And, if 3D printers have been around for a while and so have obviously CNC machines, what is the precipice of the growth?
Yeah, there are a few things coming to a head. So I mentioned like CNC machining. Subtractive technology has been around for quite a while. But there are some things that manufacturers are able to do now with like translating the digital design that you have of a product to actually making that product. They call it computer aided design to computer aided manufacturing. CAD to CAM specifically. The translation time is much faster now because it used to be that you had to have someone code all these things in to teach the machine how to make the product. But now that's become much faster, much easier. The material costs for things like the 3D printing technology are coming down. In the industry that I come from, in metal 3D printing, they use a technology that's called metal powder fusion. So you literally start with a dust, like powder metal, and that can be any kind of an alloy or whatever, and they shoot lasers at it, and those lasers melt melt the powder briefly and then accumulate it into a stack. And so at the end of it, it looks like you just have this stack of metal, but you dust it off and you shake off all the powder and there's a part in there. So the cost of lasers are going down, the cost of motors are going down. And with the advent of new technologies, they're helping to make human processes automated now. Those are some of the things that are drastically bringing down the cost of advanced manufacturing, and they're making it more accessible to people and industries where it used to be that you couldn't get the cost to pencil out. You can make the part, but you can never sell it to anybody. Now you can actually, with the economics of this equipment, you can actually make those products and make a profit.
Wow. Yeah. So margins are increasing, and generally, I always thought CNC manufacturers is kind of like a low volume, high margin type of product. Is that an accurate?
It depends. I mean, there are lots of high volume manufacturers that use CNC machining on a regular basis. So it really depends on the product that you're making. And that's really what it comes down to is that there are different types of geometries. You might have something that's like really a complex design. Maybe it's a bracket or something that needs to go onto a 777. Those are the types of things that need to be machined. And you can either start from like in a solid block of metal and shave it down from there. Or you can start from something that's like a rough form factor. But you are right that like it's not a very fast way to make things or a very efficient way. In most cases in subtractive technology, you're scraping away 80% of the material, put it into a recycling bin, send it back to the metal distributors, and they give you some money back for it, but it's a fraction of what you paid for it. And so what manufacturers are doing is they're trying to just be really smart about the things that they do in higher volumes and making the form factor of that starting piece of metal as close as possible to the finished product as possible.
So yeah, I kind of look at this as this is really just taking away, it's digitizing what was human craftsmanship. Would that be accurate?
That is accurate.
Yeah. Like what a blacksmith would do in the medieval ages, bending metal, being super precise, something probably has evolved, over the centuries. But now we're taking an area, we're computerizing it, we're taking an image, and we're making things with incredibly high precision.
That's right.
And so where is let's stop there, because I think this is really, I want to talk about the company, but I want to talk about you and your foray into advanced manufacturing and kind of your background and what led you to actually building your company.
It's a story. Let's say the easy story is I've been in manufacturing and supply chain for most of my career. I actually started my career working as a contractor for the U.S. government. I worked for Department of Defense. I worked for NASA. Did a bunch of work for lots of companies. And on this project that I got staffed on with Department of Defense, a partner comes to me and he's like, "Hey, I've got this international project. I think you'd be really great for it. It's manufacturing oriented. It just happens to be in a location. It's kind of a conflict zone." And I was like, "All right, where are we going?"
Yeah, we're going to Mexico.
Mexico, yeah, like wherever, Pittsburgh, where I came from. And he's like, "No, it's in the Middle East, in Baghdad, and I need you and a team of 3 people to go out there for a year and help a few of these Iraqi factories source some equipment so that they can start to operate again." And my mind was kind of blown. First of all, that this was a Department of Defense program, but they were looking at it and the guys that manufacturing is really the bedrock of most world economies. And so if you can start to make investments in that space and employ people actively that are doing things productive to the rest of the economy, then it's going to have a positive impact overall on physical security, economic security, and all of those things. So on top of learning about all the equipment I was sourcing, things like tire presses, cement tumbling machines, electricity generators, all that stuff, I really got turned on to this idea that manufacturing can be used as a tool for economic development. And so, when I moved back to the States, I found myself out in Silicon Valley. I was working at a software company. I wasn't entirely in love with it, but a friend of mine was like, "Hey, I got a job at this electric vehicle startup. You should come and check it out." And in my mind, I was going to see a golf cart or something in a Walmart parking lot. Right. And he brings me out to the Tesla factory in Fremont that they had just acquired from Toyota. And he took me for a ride in the car, which blew my mind. But taking the walk through the factory was really the thing that just completely blew me away.
Because around what year was this? How long was this?
So this was 2013.
Okay.
And at Tesla, I don't think in years, I think in terms of programs, because they're all consuming. So Tesla had just launched the Model S, and they were designing at the time the Model X. And as we were walking through the factory, I noticed that maybe 20% of the space was occupied, and most of it was just dark areas with a bunch of old equipment there. And my friend was like, "Look, I've got an agenda here. We have a bunch of people to buy parts for the vehicle, but we don't have anyone to buy the actual manufacturing equipment we need to make Model X or Model 3 or any of that stuff. I know you did some stuff in Iraq that, was equipment oriented. Maybe you can do the same thing here." And so it turns out the rest is history. I ended up meeting with the supply chain leader at Tesla. And in my first week, he puts me in front of Elon. And he's going on one of his classic tirades, and we're literally just as close as you and I are right now. And so, if you've never been to an Elon meeting, he typically sits on one side of the table, everyone else sits on the other side, and he's just going on this rant about how we're paying so much for robots, and we have no idea what we're doing, and we need to get the prices down, and all this stuff. And so, my boss was kind enough to be like, "Well, yeah, we just brought this new guy, Will, in here. He's sitting right here. He's going to take care of all this stuff for you." And
tell him.
And so I was like, a week in, and I get back to my desk, and I was like, crap, I have no idea where to even start with this. Who even makes this stuff? Can I buy it from them? Do I need to buy it through a distributor? Who's going to program them? And I was left to my own devices to figure out how to source things within this industry. So lucky for me, I was able to do that for robots, and I got a discount, and I got to keep my job for a few more weeks, and Elon was happy. But
did he tell you he was happy?
No, he never says that. He told me, he said, "So did you just get a great deal because you're good, or do you think they were screwing us?" And I was like, "I think they were screwing us." He's like, "Good answer." So, but it was fascinating because I got to learn so much about so many different types of equipment. And I feel like it was a really special position because Tesla was so vertically integrated and still is. So what I mean by that is Tesla is a company that starts with coils of aluminum rolling in the back docks of the factory. They uncoil those. They put them in these massive stamping presses, press them into form factors. They start with plastic pellets. They put them into injection molding machines. They press the front fascia that goes on the car, Like they are literally starting with the bare bones, the very like elemental parts of the car and making it. And so what that meant for me is that I had to build relationships with all of these companies. I had to learn enough about how they worked from the engineers that I worked with to know what type of things should I buy and what's going to be good for our manufacturing line.
And that was earlier in your career, right?
Yeah, relatively. I mean, I was like 25. I should never have been put in charge of that much responsibility.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm like, you had management consulting experience. You had some, definitely some defense experience, but that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it was like $3.5 billion worth of responsibility. So it was a lot of money. I might never see that much money again in my lifetime. But it was phenomenal because in that position, you get to learn so much. So I always tell people the thing I took away from it is really the learning. And it wasn't always pleasant. It wasn't always fun. But I tell people you can be grateful for the opportunity, even if you didn't always enjoy the experience of going through it. So that was one of those things for me that quite honestly, I wouldn't be in a position today to start my new company, Diagon, if it weren't for that experience that I had at Tesla.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear the culture is very similar at SpaceX too.
I've heard that. I worked with quite a few SpaceX people in my previous company at Astra, and I mean it's people use things like, oh, was it a bad culture, a good culture? Like there's no good. No,
it's a high performance culture.
It's a high performance culture, and it's the culture that's needed to do the things that these companies do.
It's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody. We were pioneers in the electric vehicle space. I remember going to people's factories or our suppliers, and I had to pitch them on doing business with us. Like I had a Tesla pitch deck because they were mispronouncing the name. They're like, oh, is this a Telsa? What do you guys do? What do you make? Right. And so I remember, just being in that position and having to prove everyone wrong, and having to achieve the impossible regularly, where that became such a routine thing that, now so many people from that era of Tesla are starting their own companies now. Mm-hmm. It's one of those places that kind of transforms the way you think. Like they put your brain in a blender, pour it into a little ramekin, they bake it, and you come out with something completely new. And so now everyone is taking those lessons that they learned from SpaceX, from Tesla, from all these places, and reapplying them to new industries. So I really think it's a beautiful thing. It's kind of a great training ground where you learn how to become an elite athlete, and then you apply those principles to whatever problem you want to tackle.
Nice. And so how did that lead you into Diagon? And then you had some experiences at some other great companies as well.
Yes, for sure. They're all great companies. I would say, after Tesla, just spending some time working in startups was one of those things that acclimated me to this idea that you're not always going to have billions of dollars to be able to go out and do this type of procurement. You're not always going to have the resources available. So I've worked at 10-person companies and rocket companies that were 100 people. So Astra was about 100 people when I joined.
Did Astra get rockets up?
Yeah, Astra got quite a few number of rockets up. So Astra launched, during my time there, we launched 5 rockets. I think we got six of them up, and 2 successfully into orbit. So one was just a mass simulator, and another was like payload carrying with satellites.
Awesome.
So it was really impressive. And I can tell you, there is no feeling like knowing that something you helped build is, made it out into space and is now, circling the Earth at 17,000 miles an hour. That was an amazing place to be.
Did you carve your name into it before?
What did we do? No, we didn't get to sign anything that went into space, but we did have a few rituals where everybody got to have their mark on the thing that we were making. Mm-hmm. So it was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like software, right? In software, it's kind of a thankless, people use the product, but you don't have this grandiose, climactic event.
That's right. I mean,
that happens.
We talk about things because now I'm in the software world, and so it's been interesting for me using terms like, when are we going to launch, or when are we going to do this? And I'm like, wait,
launch has a different meaning.
Launch has a totally different meaning for me these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in that vein, there are a lot of hardware people that have learned how to figure out and solve some really amazing hardware problems. And in the past, I think we've seen software people that are trying to apply those principles to hardware, but now we're starting to see some of that cross-pollination where there are people coming from hard industries and building software tools that they know other people need. So you asked me about how I came to start Diagon. Just get people reaching out to me all the time, like literally all the time, asking me the most random questions about robots or 3D printers. Like, where, I need to buy a dispensing robot. Like, where can I get one from? How much should I pay for this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know any integrators that can program this or build this type of a line for me? Where can I get financing? And so I spent some time doing consulting for a few organizations. I've been an advisor to more than I can think of. And I was finally like, what if I could put my brain into a platform and I could use that platform to serve as the purchasing function specifically for this spend category? Because one of the things I realized is that even organizations that have a supply chain manager, that supply chain manager is typically focused on buying materials that they need that are going to become the finished product.
You're assuming the supply chain manager is walking into a existing factory that's doing things.
Exactly. So they're walking into an infrastructure where maybe there's already some things existing, but nobody really thinks about procurement of equipment. Very few organizations, I will say, think about that as a strategic part of their organization. And so there isn't usually a person like me, like I was at Tesla at a 50-person or 100-person machine shop or a venture-backed startup.
Would that person be like someone that works at like what's it called? The place that you're doing your accelerator.
Like
Autodesk.
Autodesk.
Yeah. Would that kind of be a consultative? Like, hey, can we also sell you some software type of deal?
Yeah. So it could be. So I think it might help to maybe explain how we're building the software and then how we can tie in with things that companies like Autodesk are doing. So I started thinking about this procurement function, just really purely, you're spending $1 million on CNC machines or metal 3D printers or whatever, and that might not seem like a lot to a large company. It seems like a lot to you and me. But like if you're a venture-backed company, a lot of times, these companies are betting the house on whatever manufacturing they absolutely need to do. And they may have no idea where to begin with that process, how much to spend, where to get it, and like how to get financing and tracking and shipping and all of that stuff. And so we built Diagon as a business-to-business marketplace for manufacturing equipment, where you can do a broad search on an equipment category, put in metal 3D printers. And then based on the customer's needs, maybe they have a product that has a certain size or form factor that dictates the printing envelope that the printer will need to have. And then there are materials. So like, depending on the material in the aerospace industry, we use Inconel because it has a high melting point. It's like a metal alloy. And
that's where the Wolverine's claws are made out of, right?
Oh yeah, I think so. I gotta do my research and see if there's a specification for it. But yeah, exactly those types of things, right? And so it used to be that you would have to go and do a lot of primary research on your own and trying to find the companies that make those printers. Maybe you talk to Bob down the hallway in engineering, and he might have worked with a company at a previous job or a role. And so we're really just kind of bringing together all of that knowledge from across the industry, building it into this platform so that you can find the things you need. Once you find the things you need, you can actually purchase them there, because doing even a web-based transaction is a pretty radical thing in the manufacturing industry. And then once you find the products that you need, a lot of times there are other related or ancillary products that go along with it. So for an industrial automation robot, you might need an end-of-arm tool. And you want to know, is that end-of-arm tool compatible with the robot that I bought? Does the robot have a high enough payload to carry that tool somewhere? If you've got a CNC machine, you might have a palletizer or depalletizer. So you asked about high volume manufacturing and CNC machining. One of the things the companies will do is they'll have like a loader where you can load up, an 8-hour shift worth of work into a palletizer. It sends it into the machine makes the part, kicks it back out, puts the next one in. And all of those things have compatibility considerations. So we're trying to make that easier for our customers as well. And then if you need programming support or maintenance support and things like that, all of these things were so scattered or so fragmented previously that I just felt like someone has to do something about this. And if no one's doing it, why not me? And I started, once I got to that decision point, I started thinking to myself, I'm going to build the tool that I wished I always had when I was in this role doing this at a Fortune 500 company, because I know if I can make it work for that use case, if you're a middle America machine shop or 3D printer or venture-backed startup, that this platform can be used for any of those types of customers. And so far, the response has been a resounding yes. I think people are really interested in what we're building. And I'm excited to seize that opportunity.
Awesome. And so you just raised a round.
We did. We raised a pre-seed round of $750,000. It was really great. We partnered with Valia Ventures. So they're an institutional investor. They primarily early stage, but very founder friendly. They understood and caught the vision for what we were trying to build, and they're just really behind us. So so that's been great. We've got we also recently got accepted into the Autodesk residency program. So we're now being able to take advantage of their founder space that they have in San Francisco. It's kind of an R&D lab that's like a candy shop for anybody that's into advanced manufacturing.
Yeah.
When you come to San Francisco, come and check it out. It's I think it's really wise for founders to be around other founders and other people that are trying to build things.
There's something contagious about that.
There's something contagious about it. It's much more of an artistic process than a scientific one. And so you need to be around other creators, other people who are going to build you up, because there are enough people in this world that will try to tear you down.
Yes. There's no shortage of haters.
There's no shortage of haters.
And there's no shortage of headwinds. I mean, this stuff, I don't care what you do. I don't know one founder that said that, it's kind of easy.
No, it's not easy for anyone. And if they tell you that, they're a damn liar.
Yeah. I mean, like the product market fit, journey is insanely difficult. The business building is extremely difficult. The go-to-market fit is extremely difficult.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking about even the economic situation that we're in today, people ask me like, they'll tell me this is such a hard time to start a business. Why did you do this now? Why are you, trying to, go up against these headwinds? And the thing that I keep in mind is, first of all, there's just, I think about the macroeconomic situation that we're in today. There's all this political talk about reshoring manufacturing and building more things, in domestically and closer to home, right? And so as I started talking to companies like our friends at Datum Source and other people who are really tapping into the American manufacturing base, I had this oh shit moment where I'm like, there just aren't enough manufacturers out there to absorb the demand, credibly absorb the demand from any of these big manufacturing hubs in Asia or overseas. So how do we get more assets deployed that can actually make and build things for us?
Yeah, and they need to scale up quickly. I mean, I guess, how I would think about it is, they probably have their jobs and their vendor or their customers, and they, provide them suppliers. But all of a sudden there's this Super Bowl like moment where they can come up and they need to be competitive.
Yeah, I mean,
or else it's going to go to Mexico.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, Mexico, they're going to be great partners for us too, but there are a lot of things in aerospace and defense industry.
Can't do it.
Yeah, you can't do it overseas anywhere.
Yeah.
And I remembered struggling really hard to find, certified, you've got to be ITAR compliant, certified suppliers in order to do any kind of work on what is essentially is like a weapons grade rocket. And so, so those things are going to be super important. And this is an opportunity for the American manufacturing base to step up and be superheroes. And so we want to help them do that. And so the other part of these economic dynamics that we're up against is that companies aren't really hiring a lot right now. I'll clarify. In the software world, we see the big headlines about Meta, Google, all of that. And I think that, that's the manufacturing base is a distinct enough industry that it's kind of sheltered from those types of big layoffs. But
Mature manufacturing,
yeah. I'll say, yeah. And you have the need for assembly workers and people who are actually hands-on operating the machines. That demand is really high. So in the the back end and kind of the blue collar laboring workforce within the manufacturing world, there is a huge demand for them right now. The thing that's lagging behind is the back office operations within these companies. So I realized that they're not hiring procurement professionals. They're not hiring, supply chain managers and, people who are managing the business of manufacturing. And so now I think is actually a perfect opportunity to give these manufacturers, the people who are doing their best to tackle 3 and 4 jobs at a time, provide them with the tools that make their jobs easier. And so, anytime you can automate a process of ordering parts or finding equipment that matches your needs,
there's a bull market somewhere.
There's a bull market somewhere.
There's profit pools somewhere. There's opportunity. Any founder that says, "Oh, well, the market came, so my company failed." I mean, that's weak.
That's weak sauce.
That's weak as fuck.
Yes, man.
I think the only difficult part is just raising capital, but that's why you're an early stage company. You can pivot, you can do this, you can do that, you can add services, you can you could do lots of different, you have tons of optionality.
I can do a lot of stuff today that I wouldn't be able to do if I were 3 or 4 years down the road.
No,
I can afford to take risks and take on customers that I just wouldn't scale for me at a different stage. So I'm really happy with where we are right now. It's humble beginnings, but we've got a really big demand in front of us and a really big opportunity that we're trying to take advantage of.
So where is the profit pools? Is it just the reshoring? Is that where you see it? Is it semiconductor?
Not just reshoring. I think that in machining and manufacturing, there's a huge opportunity. So some of it, yes, is coming from reshoring. You see semiconductor companies that are building new fabrication plants here. TSMC, Taiwanese semiconductor company, they're building a massive plant right down the road from here in Arizona. They've invested now upwards of $10 billion in making more things domestically here. Intel is investing in new plants in Ohio. You have aerospace companies and really space technology companies like SpaceX, Relativity, Astra. So there is healthy demand for the products that we all need and rely on. And the thing that I would remind people to keep in mind is that there are manufacturing clusters around each of those big names that you hear about. So for every Intel that's out there, there are 10 other companies within radius of their factories that are supporting and holding up their operations. Same for Boeing, same for Lockheed Martin, same for all of them. There are over 750,000 manufacturers in the U.S.
Yeah, no, I buy it.
Crazy.
Couple canned questions before we end. Who should I interview? Who's another person should I interview after this and what should I interview them on?
Great question. One at the top of my mind is a guy named Vivas Kumar.
Okay.
Yeah. So Vivas is another Tesla founder. We worked together at Tesla. He was responsible for batteries and I was responsible for equipment. And he is now building lithium iron-based cathode materials to support the EV market. So, brilliant guy. He's got a great co-founding team. I'm on his board, and I've just seen them do amazing things over the last few years. I think that we're going to hear a lot more about that as more manufacturers start to take off.
I love the Tesla's market cap is bigger than all the GMs, and they're only producing this many cars. I'm like, do you know how many EV cars are going to have Tesla parts in them?
Yeah.
All of them.
All of them.
Period.
That's if you're lucky.
Right.
If they want to sell to you.
Right.
Yeah. It's going to be a really amazing to see the rise that's starting to happen.
Best piece of business advice you've ever gotten?
Best piece of business advice I've ever gotten.
Best piece of business advice Chamath has ever given you?
Chamath. All right. Chamath has given me some great advice. Chamath was one of he was like, honestly, the catalyst for me stepping out and starting this business. I just remember talking to him one day about this vision that I had to start a business that was focused on manufacturers. And he was just like, how much do you need? And, you kind of laugh those things off. And he looks at me just deadpan. He's like, you think I'm joking? I'm really serious. Like, you actually put together a budget and tell me how much money you need. You should start this business and don't wait. Like, don't waste your time trying to, wait for the perfect moment. There's never going to be a perfect moment. And maybe that's the piece of advice. I would say that's the thing that kind of pushed me over the edge to actually have the guts to step out and do it. But yeah, it was good advice.
Yeah. Life's not a dress rehearsal.
No.
Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We drop an episode every week where we talk to incredible people like Will about, what it's like to do really cool stuff in the world and how we can get ahead, right? And what we can do to, stay on the edge, right? And have an advantage. So thank you so much. We could drop an episode every Tuesday. If you like it, please subscribe. We'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Capital Stack Podcast. Make sure to share this with someone you know that can benefit from this content. Remember to support this show by rating, reviewing, and subscribing. David Paul is the founder and general partner at DWP Capital. All opinions expressed by David and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of DWP Capital. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for decisions. David and guests may maintain positions in the securities discussed on this podcast.